So we started discussing last week. We went into the first couple of weeks about the difference of Zichron Chua and Yom Chua. And last week we went into the issue of whether the mitzvah of shofar is the shmiya or the tekiah, different rayas in both directions. And we gave possible nafkaminas, either the nusach habracha, whether you make lishmola or al, and then huadin, the prefix al Allah, that they were shitason. And then we discussed shofar hagazol, perhaps according to the Rambam writes yotze, perhaps according to other Rishonim who holds the mitzvah tekiah, you would apply mitzvah b'avera. And the third nafkamina we gave was, well, mitzvah srichas kavana. If you work with Rabbi Yonah, so when you're passive, so then you have to, if the mitzvah shmiya, you need kavana. Perhaps if you hold the mitzvahs the mitzvah tekiah, so then it's like lulav and matzah, and the mitzvah talks for itself. Then we started discussing the Indian of Selichos. So we know the minig of the Svardim is that they're going strong almost a month by now, and they started Rosh Chodesh Elul. So we take some of it, we take the easy, but we will shofar in the beginning of Elul. We don't start Selichos until Motzai Shabbos. This year it was just a week before, because we have a whole week. But if in a week where Rosh Hashanah falls out and you don't have 4 days to say Selichos, so our minig is to begin 2 weeks before. Why the 4 days? And the post can give either because a person is like, just like the halakha is, you have to do a bedika of the animal 4 days before it's brought on as a carbon on the mizbeach. So too, we're approaching Yom Adin, so we all have to do our own personal bedika, so we need 4 days. Or, as others quote, an old minig that during Aseret Shemei Tshuva, the minig was to fast during Aseret Shemei Tshuva. But you had a fundamental problem. You only could fast for 6 out of the 10 days, because you have 2 days Rosh Hashanah, which we'll come back to, and that happens to be Machlokas Rishonim and Gaonim, but what we assume is on Rosh Hashanah you cannot fast. Erev Yom Kippur and Shabbos, so to make up for the 4 days that you can't fast, and the minig developed that 4 days, at least a minimum of 4 days before Rosh Hashanah, you do Selichos. And then we pointed out a very interesting Ramah. The Ramah writes that, a very big Kiddush, that the one who leads the Selichos, he has to be the one to lead Shacharis and Mincha. Ma'ariv is a separate discussion, but also we'll get into, it depends when you're saying Selichos, but Pashas, at least Shacharis and Mincha, the one who's leading the Selichos leads the Shacharis and Mincha. Ma'ariv is a discussion whether it applies to the night before as well. So what's the basis of the Ramah? Why does the Ramah say that one who leads Selichos has to be the one to be the Shliach Tzibor at Shacharis and Mincha? So the Magen Avraham says a big Kiddush. He says, because we have a famous principle, Hamatchel b'mitzvah, Omen lo gmar. One who begins a mitzvah, you have to finish it. So the Binyan Shlomo and others, or Shlomo Kluger, say, what's the Magen Avraham talking about? I'm familiar with the Gemara. Yes, I know the klal, Hamatchel b'mitzvah, Omen lo gmar. We'll discuss that more in a minute. So you're right, someone who gets up and starts Ashrei in Selichos, he shouldn't walk off 5 minutes later, he should finish the Selichos. But what does that have to do with Shacharis and Mincha? It makes no sense, to the Achronim point out. And therefore he suggests a different shot, more very pragmatic. Not alumdus, but very pragmatic. You know what the concept was? Do you know what the Ramah is getting at? Nothing to do with Hamatchel b'mitzvah Gmar. It has to do with, during those days, they didn't really have Sidurim, they didn't really have, or even if they had Sidurim, they probably didn't have the odds to Selichos yet. So basically, and we'll see it, we'll get into different minhagim, but the minig was to do it sometimes in the middle of the night, so, or even early before Alos. So it's a difficult job. You got to know it by heart. You're waking up, you didn't eat, so it's very difficult to try to get someone to do Selichos. So to throw them a pie, to throw them an incentive, you know what? whoever says Selichos will let you daven Shacharis and Mincha. Apparently, leading the tziva was an attraction during those days, and therefore they got the people to lead Selichos by throwing in Shacharis and Mincha. You know, perhaps that reason wouldn't apply today, because in fact, I know there are a lot of people who like davening Selichos. They like getting into the Yom Norah Nusach, practicing, getting ready for Rosh Hashanah, and therefore you don't need any incentive. But either way, that's what some Achronim bring down, that the Ramah was based on a more pragmatic reason. However, going back to the Magen Avraham gives a different. The Magen Avraham says a matchel b'mitzvah omen lo gemar, which is, in general, that's the famous Gemara in Sota with the Atzmos Yosef. The Gemara, we know the Torah tells us, Vayikach Moshe's Atzmos Yosef, that Moshe took out the bones of Yosef from Mitzrayim. So, and then they ask Kasha Krai Hadadi at the end of the book of Yoshua. Yoshua writes, the book of Yoshua says, as Bnei Yisrael Asher Halu, Bnei Yisrael took the bones of Moshe out of Mitzrayim. So it's a contradiction. Which one is it? Did Moshe do it, or did Bnei Yisrael do it? So the Gemara answers, the Medrash answers, physically speaking, if you were there, you had the video, it was on kosher tube, you'd see Moshe carrying the bones of Yosef out of Mitzrayim. So why does the pasuk in Yoshua give credit to Bnei Yisrael? So that's what the Gemara deduces the principle, Kohamat of a mitzvah. One person begins a mitzvah, and someone else finishes the mitzvah. The one who finishes the mitzvah not only gets credit for finishing, which he actually did do, but he gets credit for everything from the beginning. So we see from that Gemara, that in that Medrash, that one who begins the mitzvah, the one who finishes the mitzvah is the Iker. However, it isn't so pashut, because we find an apparent contradiction that the Gemara in the Medrash, I think in Tehillim, brings down. We say, at least Nusach Ashkenaz, we do it before Baruch Shamar. We say Mizmor Shir Chadukas Habayis L'Shlomo. With David. So it seems to be a mistake in the Siddur, because we all know that David's the one who began the building of the Beis HaMikdash, and Shlomo was the one who actually got to finish it. We met for many different reasons why David wasn't Zocha to build the Beis HaMikdash. Some learn it because he was fighting in the wars, the blood on his hands. It wasn't a punishment, but a natural consequence, that since you were involved in all the wars, even though Mechamas Mitzvah, etc., Mechamas Rishus, so therefore the Beis HaMikdash and the Mizbeach or Makam of Shalom, so therefore it's not appropriate for David to be building the Beis HaMikdash. Others say the opposite reason, that but if David would have built the Beis HaMikdash, then it never would have been destroyed. Like we find in different parts, they say that he did is still around. What's so bad about that? So good to let David build it, let it never be destroyed. So that we know, the famous Tosas in Kedushin quotes the Medrash, and Rabbi Selevan elaborated on his Zinjani Tisha B'Av, that it says Mizmor Yasaf. They sang a song about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So the Medrash says Kina Mizmor. What do you mean, a song? It's a lamentation. What do you mean? You're happy the Beis HaMikdash is being destroyed? So therefore, basically, the Medrash answers, and the Rav elaborated on it, that the Yisod is that the Jews knew they were going to be punished, and in fact that's why he answers up. We know there's a machlokas in the Gemara in Kindness exactly when you should observe Tisha B'Av. That some say the 9th of Av and others say the 10th of Av. Everyone agrees to the facts. Again, if the video was on, the majority of the Beis HaMikdash was on the 10th of Av. That's why some say if they were there they would have picked the 10th. Why did we pick the 9th? Because Tilaso Adif, Tilaso Prunios Adif, the beginning of the Tzara is worse. So we know we're going to get punished. So the question is, why is do we know there's the minhag on Tisha B'Av when we do the Avelis is after Chatzos, people think it's over, but it's not. Most of the dinim still apply. In fact, the dinim are all the same. It's just certain minhagim are taken off. The real dinim don't change. But the minhagim, so therefore, after chatzos we sit on a regular chair, and then we say Tiskabel Sloasa in the davening, and we, our minhag is to put on tefillin in the afternoon. Different things, we line up the Avelos somewhat. So the Kasha doesn't make any sense. Everyone agrees that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed on the 10th of the majority. So the closer you get to the destruction, I would think you should be stricter, or at least don't get more mako. So what's the pshat? So the Rebbe explained that no, that really the Jews knew they're going to be punished. And then they thought this is the end, he's going to destroy Klal Yisrael, it's finished, it's all over. And lo and behold, they saw the Beis HaMikdash starting to burn on the 9th of Av. And it was a kind of sigh of relief, a ksas nechama. Obviously destruction of the Beis HaMikdash isn't a good thing by no means, but they realized, wow, what a nechama, we thought it was going to be us, and now we see it's only Eitz V'Avanim, that we can rebuild another Beis HaMikdash, so it's not so bad, and therefore that's when they realized, so once at Chatzos they realized that it wasn't going to be us, they lined up the Avelos a little bit. But the pshat is, we see, according to this medrash, if David would have built it, we would have had a problem. And God would have to come up with a different solution, either destroy us or come up with another reason. But either way, that's what the medrash says. So whatever the reason, David was not able to build the Beis HaMikdash, whether it's a natural consequence of fighting the wars, or because if he would have built it, it couldn't have been destroyed. Either way, the kasha is Mizmor Shir Chandukas Abayit with David. He always started it, yet we give him credit. And we do find other places also this halacha that we do go basar tchila. Let's say there's a halacha, it's a discussion how far you extend the halacha, but on Shabbos and Yantiv, let's say Shalashidis, you eat your meal before and then you continue after Shabbos. So the halacha is, you still say the Riksei. It's a discussion if it also applies for Rosh Chodesh or not. The Machaber even brings it down for Purim, that you could still say Al Nisim even though Purim is over. So we go because they bring down, you go Basar Iker, you go by the Haskalah, you go by the beginning, by many halachas. In fact, there's a famous Tosfos in the beginning of Brachas on Daf Zayin, I believe, the Ma'aser with Bilam. Bilam, he worked it out. They couldn't destroy the Jewish people. He said, "I'll take care of it. I know the Jewish God hates nus." He worked out his whole plan. So the Gemara says so he was able to machaven the Shah. That every moment, a millisecond, God gets angry with him. And if you get that second in, he will be able to destroy Klal Yisrael. So the question is, how can he get a whole curse in, and like he's going to get it in that second? So one answer is, all he says is, Kaleim, destroy them. And God will know exactly what he means. Kind of like, that's the negative. On the positive note, that's what the Bali Kalbola bring down in terms of on a bris. They say there's a certain time in a bris, you have to get the exact moment, when the baby's about to cry, cries at El Yol, and it comes down, and you make a tefillah for a cholah, you'll be answered. So again, happy you can't pray everything, so you just say, God help me, help us out. So the reverse is also Kaleim. That's one answer. Tosfos gives another answer. No, as long as he started it. The luck is, as long as you started the curse at that moment, so you go Basar Haskalah, you go by the beginning, and therefore that is the Iker. In fact, the Ramah, I don't know if it's based on this Tosfos or not, but the Ramah, that's what the poskim, the Achronim write, is the Ramah writes in Shulchan Aruch. We know the halacha is, if you're a Litvak, that you have to finish Mincha before Shkia. Not only can you start Mincha, but you have to finish Mincha. The halacha is you're supposed to daven Mincha before Shkia. And then you're supposed to finish it. However, the Ramah writes, if you matchil, if you begin before Shkia, we'll let you finish. Again, because you said you go bus Iker. So we find different places where the Gemara seems to be the Iker, and the other places it's the Haskalah. So how do we reconcile? So I think Rav Moshe has a tshuva, and other Achronim I saw bring down that they want to make a distinction between the cases of Atzmos Yosef by Moshe Rabbeinu and the case of Binyamin, in the case of Moshe versus David. That's what they focus on. That the difference is Moshe Rabbeinu, it was a big skus. God wanted, because the promise that Joseph made, he wanted his bones out of Mitzrayim. So because Moshe was the leader, they were giving him, Chacham Leiv Yikach Mitzvahs. while everyone else was collecting the gold and silver, he was involved in mitzvahs. So anyone would have done it, but Moshe got the first choice. So Moshe chopped the mitzvah, he took it. But if he wouldn't have did it, anyone else would have done it. There wasn't anything special by Moshe Rabbeinu. If he wouldn't have done it, someone else would have been doing it. But by David HaMelech, it was his idea, his dream, his whole life dream, Hashem, is to build the base. Of course, we have based on Chazal, there would have been a base of Mikdash, but that could have happened 200, 300, 400 years. No, there was no set time where a base of Mikdash had to be built. So David, the only reason it was built at this time is because David put all the effort in. So they want to make a distinction that when do we say the Atzmos Yosef, we go Basar, Gemar, he gets full credit. It's when it would have happened without you. You didn't play any major role. The whole thing happens without you. You're meaningless if you don't finish it. The one who finishes get everything. But if you're instrumental, without you beginning the project, it never would have got done. So of course you're going to get credit for it. In fact, the Piskei Tshuva brings down, they bring down in the halacha of Shatchanim about setting up. The Ramah brings down a halacha about that's not just a good idea, but there's a halacha of giving kesser, giving a matana to a shadchan, and that's the famous Bnei Yisachar. The Sava Rebbe always quotes sheker, for shadchan, sheker, dover, kesef, nosein. If you don't have the kesef, nosein, you just left with the shin daled, the shay. You don't want to start off your marriage with the shay. But either way, so what's the halacha? So let's say someone sets up someone and it doesn't work. They go out for a couple of months, weeks, days. It doesn't work out. A couple of years later, the choser v'neir, as they say in your day anyway, and they get back together. Someone else, again, they forgot about each other, who knows, and someone else set them up and they went out again and they got married. Who gets the shadchanis money? That's a good child. So again, so they point out this yisod. If it wouldn't have happened without the first one, whatever that means exactly, so then the first one also will get a portion, maybe a third. But if the first time they went out was academic, so it's the one who goes. That's the yisod where Moshe and other achronim write the distinction between Moshe and David was Moshe wasn't instrumental in the act. Anyone would have done it. He just happened to be the first online. But if not him, the job would have got done. However, perhaps we could suggest a different yisod, and we'll elaborate on it more after Sukkot when we get into B'Adam L'Chaveiro. But perhaps we could focus on the difference between the mitzvah of Atzmos Yosef versus the mitzvah of Binyan Beis HaMikdash. We know the ultimate chesed, and the chesed shalamis we know is kfura. The ultimate thing doing a chesed is doing the acts of loving kindness for everyone. But the ultimate chesed is the chesed shalamis. That's why I think Rashi writes, "She'eino mistapet tashlum star," and the Hasidic Yisrael writes, "She'eino pshat is you're not waiting to get paid back. Take your time burying me. I hope I have a long time to get paid back on that mitzvah." But either way, so the chesed shalamis is usually we do a favor, or usually not. But we do a favor in the back of our minds. Okay, he owes me one. That's what the Bali Muslims say, or in that context. But let's say the concept where it comes from. Let's say someone does you a favor, you say thank you, and he says don't mention it. In other words, don't think we're even now. You still owe me. But either way, so it's the concept of chesed. So even when you're doing a chesed, I'm not saying you're thinking of it, but whether it's conscious or not, the person owes you. However, but chesed shalamis kfura, that's the person. Maybe the family will assume there's no owing here. So that's a chesed. That's a classic mitzvah B'Adam L'Chaveiro. However, Binyan Beis HaMikdash is the opposite. If you're talking about a mitzvah B'Adam L'Makom, tefillah, the makom karbanos, the Beis HaMikdash, that's the ultimate mitzvah B'Adam L'Makom. So as Rosh Shlomo Zalman and others write, and we'll get into it more later, but the fundamental yisod, one of the fundamental differences between mitzvahs B'Adam L'Makom and B'Adam L'Chaveiro is, when it comes to B'Adam L'Makom, the ikar is the maisa. It's the shaking. Your job is to eat the matzah, it's to shake the lulav. Usually it's the maisa, it's on Shabbos. The ikar is lo tasa kol malacha. But don't worry about the result. Amir l'nakri and rabbanim, but the fact that the result gets done is not the issue. The issue is I can't do. The focus is on the maisa. However, Masha'en came when it comes to B'Adam L'Chaveiro. Again, we'll discuss this more. The ikar isn't the maisa. The mitzvah is the totzah. In other words, the bottom line is You can have all the best intentions in the world, but if you don't do the guy the favor, if you don't help him out, like the Gemara says, that if someone drops money and a poor person picks it up, you can get the mitzvah tzedakah. Ultimately, you helped out someone. But if you go ahead and you plan on doing something, it never happens. So therefore, if you take my bones out of Mitzrayim and you dump them in the midbar, don't do me any favors. Just leave them there. If you're not going to finish the job, the ikar by ben adam ha'chavero is the totzah. So that could be the pshat. There's no steer. We're talking about two different kind of mitzvahs. So when it comes to Atzmitz Yosef, which is ben adam ha'chavero, the ikar is the result. So then, of course, the one who finishes the mitzvah, if you don't finish the mitzvah, what good have you done for me? Therefore, the one who finishes gets credit for everything. However, Masha'en came by Binyan Beis HaMikdash, the ultimate mitzvah, but on the makam, it's the machshava, it's the ma'aseh that's important, and therefore that you even go, even if you're matchil the mitzvah, that also has credit. We'll go into that more another time, but that's perhaps another distinction. So getting back anyway to the Ramah writes, the one who begins Selichos, he should be the one to daven the rest of Shacharis and Mincha. And the Magen Avraham says it's based on a Maskil B'Mitzvah Omer Gmar. So the question is, what's the connection? So the Rav explained, whoever wanted to give a pshat in the Magen Avraham explained the Ramah. Pshat is like this, that Selichos is not an independent mitzvah. We know, going back, there's a fundamental machlokes Rambam and Ramban on the nature of the mitzvah of tefillah at all. The Rambam's opinion is mitzvah aseh l'spalel b'chol yom. There's a biblical mitzvah to daven every day. And the Ramban writes, the mitzvah is the Eisara. That's the Rambam by Mahaloska. It's a time of Muhammad, earthquake, some real danger. So then tefillah, the Eisara is deraisa. So it seems to be a fundamental machlokes. The Rav thought it was more of a local machlokes, not a fundamental one. That everyone agrees. The only time tefillah is daraisa is Eisara. The only machlokes the Rambam and the Ramban is, how do you define Eisara? The Ramban takes the external approach, a war, a terrorist attack, something in imminent danger. So then that's an Eisara, the war, and therefore tefillah takes on the status of daraisa. But the Rambam says no, the frailty of human life. Every day we know you get sick, with all the diseases going around, you take a fall, you break your leg, everything going around, everyday life is an Eisara, and therefore it takes on a din. Tefillah every day is a deraisa. So we know there's a concept of tefillah on a tainus. We have a concept of adding, we do slichos as well. We add this Indian of riboy tefillah. See, we think it's not just limited to Yom Kippur, which is the only time we do it today, but tefillah's ne'ilah is nothing to do with Yom Kippur per se. It's din in tainus sibor, we add to the different tefillahs. So the Rav says Selichos isn't an independent mitzvah, but it's hakdama it attaches on to the mitzvah of tefillah. It's a time of Eisara, the discussion, the Yom HaNorah, where they begin the Rosh Chodesh Elul, they're beginning Rosh Hashanah, but now's the time of, it's Yemei Hadin tomorrow night, so what greater Eisara than now? So Selichos is part of the mitzvah of tefillah. It's not its own independent mitzvah, it's attached to the mitzvahs hayom. And therefore he points out that what's the pshat? It's not like they were asking what is it, because if someone daven during the year, someone daven shacharis, you don't tell him to daven mincha. Shacharis and mincha are two different tefillahs, you're right. But the Rav says Selichos takes on a hakdama to every tefillah. He goes so far as to say, if one got up and davened Selichos, then he went to sleep and didn't daven shacharis, he doesn't even get credit for Selichos. It's only an introduction. If you don't do, like you do Psik of the Zimran, you don't do Tefillah, so what have you done? The introduction is only Hakdama to Tefillah. If you don't do Tefillah, so obviously there wasn't a Hakdama either. So therefore the Rav says that's the pshat in the Ramah, in the Magen Avraham. Hamatkil the mitzvah will gmar, you began the mitzvah of Tefillah Be'isara, the union of Selichos, and therefore once you started, you should be the one to finish it. And in fact the Rav says the same Yisod.
How do you explain Mincha then?
No, the Selichos is on the whole day. So therefore,
but the preparation would only be for Shacharis.
No, he's saying to sleep. No, Psukim the Zimmer we have, let's say, before that goes on the Shach. The Rav is saying is the Selichos you do in the morning. It's going on the whole yom. It's not just going on. It's Hakdama for the all tefillah of the whole day, and therefore it's Shacharis and Mincha. It's true we're doing it before Shacharis, but that's just coincidental. That happens to be We'll see what the Zman Slichos is. That's the Zman Slichos. But he's saying that's the introduction for the whole tefillah of the day, and therefore even though you're saying it in the morning, but that's still when you're doing mincha, it's a continuation out of shacharis. It's the hafdama from the Selichos, so that's why the person who led Selichos has to do mincha. And he says the opposite direction on Yom Kippur. We know, as I just mentioned, tefillas ne'ilah. We know we usually daven 3 times a day, Yom Tovim 4, and 5. We know all religions, take it from Judaism. So, but they take different parts. So, Islam seems to focus on Yom Kippur, seems to be a big one. As we see, they're very into fasting. I'm not sure if Ramadan's still going or not. It's getting close, or it might be over. But they're big into fasting. They're big into the 5 times a day they pray every day. And, they kneel on the ground. We only do that stuff on Yom Kippur. So the Eilah really has something to do with Yom Kippur, but what is Tfilas Ne'ilah, the Rav said? It's a summation of all the Tfilas Hayom. The Selichos is an introduction to all the Tfilas Hayom. Ne'ilah is a summation. That's why he says the same Yisod. If someone who didn't daven Aravis, Shacharis, Musaf, and Mincha, he shouldn't be, not that, I don't assume he's not only the one doing it, he should not be the one davening Ne'ilah. Because Ne'ilah is not just Ne'ilah, Ne'ilah is representing Moshe Zabai discussed maybe if he davened some of them it's good enough, but the Rav wanted to say perhaps even if you didn't daven all of them, so how could you be representing the tzibur? It's not just an independent tefillah, it's a summation of all the tefillah you did, and therefore it has to be someone who davened. So a similar yisod, in the beginning of Selichos he says by Ne'ilah at the end. That's what the Rav wants to explain the pshat in the Magen Avraham in the Ramah. So when's the Zman HaSlichos? So we usually most places the first night they daven at night. We'll see what time at night. Let's assume they daven at night. Let's assume they wait to Chatzos, for argument's sake. Do they have an early minyan in the bayit or not?
Sure.
So they wait.
There was 2 minyan, and one was at 1 o'clock, and one was at 1:10. Which one?
On theater place it's 11:30.
Oh, what's at 11:30?
Earlier.
No, but I think you can make it a lot earlier than that. Why not right after Myra as face Moshe? But either way, we'll discuss that shortly. So many shults have a minhag. They wait for Motzai Shabbat, and it used to be, they have the tea and cake. They come before. Sometimes maybe the rabbi speaks, and then they have the big drush, and then they have the slichos at night. And then after that, they go back to the morning. They go back to usually before Shacharis. And actually, I was in the Yeshiva Beis HaTalmud in Bensonhurst, real yeshiva, like the break off from the Mir. Mir wasn't firm enough for them because they had secular studies. They didn't go for that. Not even high school, so they had their own. So I used to live near the next door to the Rosh. I used to daven there when I came back from Israel. So even the first morning, they used to daven Sunday morning. They didn't daven. But the minhag of Motzei Shabbos, because in the Pisma, Motzei Menucha, is the Indian of the first night of doing it at night. And in fact, some say the first night, there is some Indian that you'll see, even if you're going to do it early the other nights, someone will claim you shouldn't do it there because there's a time you have to let Shabbos go out, and you're saying Gwen to Zman Rachamim din. So either way, there is a minhag that they do it at night, Motzei Shabbos, and the rest of the day in the morning. So when is the appropriate time? When is the ideal time to say Slichos? So again, there's no real. The Gemara doesn't actually give us a Zman. That's why Mikra din you could probably say Slichos any time, as we'll get to. But what is the appropriate Zman? So in the Machaber brings down, based on the poskim, that let's assume there are 3 Ashmoras. Let's assume there's a 6 to 6 day. So at the beginning of the Sof Ashmur Achrona, in other words, basically 2 o'clock in the morning, 6 to 10, 10 to 2, between 2 and 6. That is the Zman HaRachan and the Bali Kabbalah tell us, and therefore one should say Slichos between that time, between 2 and 6. Other poskim on Mekel, if you want to.
How does it work 2 to 6? The hour is
assuming
when?
I'm assuming it's a 12-hour. I'm assuming a 12-hour night, and therefore the first is from 6 to 10. The second Ashmor is from 10 to 2. So the Ash Ashmora would be from 2 to 6. I'm just making up the time. So you go with Shalosh Manias. I'm just assuming a complete I'm assuming a 60-minute hour in my example.
And night begins at...
Yeah, but I'm saying it doesn't make it, whatever you want to do, I'm just saying they say it's the beginning of the third, the last Hashmura of the night, that's when you do it.
Beginning of the third Hashmura.
Yeah, so whatever that time, I didn't look it up, I don't have to have it on the charts, when the beginning of the third. And if you want to be Mekel, so many posts can bring down the Arizal, or the Ari, and others, that after Chatzos is already good enough, because once they do Tikkun Chatzos, after Chatzos, because already it's starting, after Chatzos already, the din part is over. Up until Chatzos, it's in Kabbalah circles, it's din. After Chatzos, it's Midas Rachamim starts coming, so you can already start after Chatzos. Hence the minhag that, at least on Motzoi Shabbos, and, in YU they did it all the time then, is after Chatzos, they always had a minyan every, YU had the gamut of minyanim you could choose from, but they had a minyan. That's probably the most crowded minyan was the one at 1:10. But you're in the dormitory, so everyone's up anyway. So it's not like you're going to sleep 11 o'clock. So obviously, do your homework beforehand, and you're up to 2, 3 in the morning anyway. So therefore, it's easier for many people in university to do it that time. You don't have to wake up early. So that's when.
I found that YU was after Mother.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They had that one also.
That was the most popular.
Yeah, that was pretty popular also. Right. So they point out that after Chatzos, the post can bring down Laila at any time before Chatzos is not appropriate. The post can bring down, many have strong words about saying, because it doesn't make any sense. Selichos is supposed to be Ba'orei Rachamim, and Laila is din, so you should be saying Selichos during the night, because any time before Chatzos, many posts can talk out about it, I think the Birkei Yosef, it's a terrible minhag. Some people started saying Selichos, I guess it's an earlier minhag already. It's a terrible thing. People are saying Selichos Balayla, you should do it. Someone asked Ramoshe, he has a tshuva about the community wanted to do Selichos at night because people were going to come in the morning, if they stayed up all night. So basically, the Ramoshe wasn't happy with the minhag. He's more of a Horah Shav. It's a fledgling community, and it's just you work on your balabatim. Eventually, you'll get them to do it in the appropriate time, but you'll make your judge. If you think they're not going to say Selichos at all, if you don't have this, then you go. He left it to the Rav, I guess, to make that decision. He wasn't happy with it, but of course, the Horah Shav became the mitzvah lechatchila, which usually happens.
And now,
danger. What?
It's a danger. I think he was talking in New York.
Right, that's a separate. That was a separate one also. They talk about it like the Saturday night where you have older people. Right, that's a separate issue. Right, that's a much more pragmatic issue. Then why not do it in the morning then, if it's a danger? That's what the post can bring down. Even though Rav Shefta was very machmir, he said he was very against the night minyan, and he doesn't even think shach. Even the way we do it, we meaning most people do it before. The old minhag was they used to wake up Shofar Shmura, and then they didn't go to sleep. What do we do? We said sleep because we went to sleep. They woke up, they did sleep, they went straight into Shacharis, and that was it. So Shacharis really isn't the Zman either. But at least that's better because it's Yom, so it's Yemei Rachamim, it's not Din. But he screamed Chayv, and Rav Shefta is very machmir against that. He says it doesn't make any sense to do it at night because he says this whole Selichos is from the Kabbalists, meaning they made up the Selichos. We don't understand it. You made Din, you made Ratzon. So once we're doing it, we got to follow their rules. We got to play their game. We can't just take my game rule. We don't know what it means during Ratzon. Then once they made up the Selichos and they tell you not to do it, then he says you got to play by their rules. And if he was very against that minhag of I don't know if he would say that not do it at all. I'm not sure if anyone would or not. Perhaps maybe it's better not to do Selichos at all.
A night before Chatzos.
Yeah, that'd be right. He's talking about before Chatzos. So I'm not sure if I haven't seen anyone, but maybe I don't know if anyone would go that strong and say better not to do Selichos at all than not to. I haven't seen anyone say that, but that would be a natural extension. So at least in the morning you're up. It's Yom, so therefore it's not Yomei Hadin. That's why Rav Shefta was very against. Again, so everyone agrees, you should do it anywhere from any time after Chatzos until the end of the Shemora. And the minhag was to finish Selichos at night, not at night, but at night after Chatzos. And then they used to go right into right into Shacharis. So at least the Widden will do it. So again, so therefore, if you feel, see, poskim talk about, let's say it's going to mess up your learning. So some poskim quote from the, I guess, they quote from the Shari Tshuva that maybe, yeah, it should make din ratzon. Maybe you should sacrifice your learning during this time, and your focus should be on tefillah and not Talmud Torah. If you don't, you have a certain time to do it. If you're going to stay up late and you're going to have to sleep more or not learn as well, I'm sure others would disagree with that, but others folks can bring down. And no, the focus now is you made tefillah, not you made. It's not the time of Talmud Torah per se, and therefore don't compromise your tefillah so that you can learn better. And obviously others might feel differently. So the meaning in yeshivas, as I said, even in the Beis HaTalmud and Ben Sura, they did it in the morning in Shacharis. So even the meaning in yeshivas, obviously, they probably among the more the Hasidic yeshivas, they'd be saying that. So again, so everyone, so lechatchi, you do it from chatzos until the end until alos. If you can't do it then you should do it shacharis. I guess push comes to shove, you have no other option, either danger or because you're not going to get people to do it. So then, you do it at nighttime. And then, so then, that's what I'm saying, the minhag in YU was that the people who did it, they did it, I'm saying they do it right after, that's the most convenient, right after Ma'ariv. In fact, I was once in a shul, we finish Ma'ariv, and then all of a sudden I hear Ashrei. I said, what, the davening mincha after Ma'ariv? And then I see already the starting Selichos. So, but, so again, so it's not an uncommon practice, it's definitely it's not very popular in the poskim, but I know in New York, you find plenty of minyanim right after Ma'ariv, and I guess the Rav's making the decision that they're not going to come in the morning, or it's going to be too late, and they wake up, or whatever the cheshbon is, the Rav will determine he'll make his judgment call whether you do it at night or not.
So what's the sequence again?
The sequence
is chatzos till...
Right, chatzos to... the Machaber brings down the last Ashmura, so in theory between 2 and 6. Others say it's also lechatchila from after chatzos, because that's what we do, tikkun chatzos, it's ready as man racham migan. So any time basically between chatzos and alos.
And alos.
Right, and then the next best thing would be shachar, would be before shachar is after alos. Because at least it's yom, so at least it's not Jemei Din. And the last resort would be Laila, meaning before Chatzos, any time after Ma'ariv until Chatzos. So one of the issues that come up on Selichos, I guess it also depends when you say it. If you say it in the morning, that is, after Alos, is would you have to make a Birkas HaTorah before you say Selichos? The Selichos quotes many psukim. So you have to do, according to some Rishonim, Birkas HaTorah is a mitzvah min HaTorah. Perhaps it's an Isser to learn Torah, Isser min HaTorah, yeah.
I just wanted to, but after Shacharis, like if a person didn't say Selichos, it's after Shacharis. No one says you need Selichos?
People some even say it's better to do it before Mincha. No, you can have the whole day for Selichos. Something you're better off doing it before Mincha than doing it at Laila. I've seen, posts can bring down you have the whole day for Selichos. It certainly can't be worse than...
As yom as you may rock.
Right, it's better than the nighttime. That's a good minhag before Mincha. I like that minhag. More in terms of convenience, I mean. So that's one of the issues. So that's a machlokas Rishonim in general. When you read, it comes up even in Tefillah. If you're reading Talmud Torah, but the Torah is Tefillah, so some Rishonim say you have to make a Birkas HaTorah, and therefore before you do Selichos, you might as well. But others say, no, the only time you have to make a Birkas HaTorah is if it's B'Torah's Talmud Torah. If you're doing B'Torah's Tefillah, it comes up, the Shaila, similar Shaila on Tisha B'Av, because we know the Gemara tells us you should say Kriya Shema with your tefillin on. As we all know, and our minhag is we don't put our tefillin into a mincha, and there's no Kriya Shema in mincha. That's a question among the poskim. Should you go ahead now and say Kriya Shema? So that's, you get, because it is for Talmud Torah, so that's the issue. Do I say, if I'm saying Kriya Shema, the Torah is my tefillin, I'm giving Eidos, so then that's different opinions among
why wouldn't you say them before?
Why wouldn't you what?
Say
no, in the morning, sure. Some say you have to. since it's a machlokas, we should. Some say there's no need to because Birkas HaTorah is only if it's B'Torah's Talmud Torah. If you're reading Psukim B'Torah's Tefillah or Kachanur, that's not what Birkas HaTorah is. But right, it's a suffix, so everyone, so in the morning you definitely shouldn't do the Birkas HaTorah because there's no harm. And also another issue that comes up with Selichos is, depends also when you do it, so let's assume the first night you're doing it at night, the issue of putting on a talis at night. That, it says you need, it talks about lisate, so some want to say, some had a chumrah, that you should wear a hat or put a talis over your head. Some have a chumrah like that based on the lashon. But Either just means wearing a talis. That's what it means, me'ikar adin. If you have a chumrah to cover your head, fine. But me'ikar adin, it means you have to wear a talis. So if you're davening in the morning, it's not an issue. You can make a bracha on your talis. The issue is, what about if you chatzos, whatever, even 11:30, whatever you're davening at night. So what do you do then? So we know in general there's a major machlokas rishonim between the Rambam and the Rush on whether tzitzis is Lila's man tzitzis or not. In other words, we know it says Uri'isem also. So there's one sheet in the Rishonim, and no one else assumes that you have to actually wear your beged out and your tzitzis out. In fact, the Vazi Yosef writes, he speaks very strongly that it's usher to wear your tzitzis out based on Kabbalah. But Achedo B'nai Ashkenaz, they could be Meko. But all smart to make sure to keep your tzitzis inside. So he points out that the Rambam writes, the Rambam learned what is it coming Urisem also. It comes Prat L'Laila. In other words, there is no mitzvah of tzitzis at night. You gain nothing. In other words, you could take it off. In fact, you can even wear a four-corner garment without tzitzis on. It's nothing. There is no mitzvah of tzitzis. It does not exist. And the Rush disagrees and says it's not coming to exclude Yom versus Laila. It's coming to exclude Beged Yom versus Beged Laila. And therefore, according to the Rush, Talis is a Beged Yom. So according to the Rush, you'd have a chiyuv to wear tzitzis and make a bracha. So it's a sveiked dina how we paskin. Do we paskin like the Rambam or do we paskin like the Rush? So what should we do? So Rav Moshe has a tshuva which I find interesting, but let's say the case is someone, whatever, you're planning on going to sleep, maybe you changed already and then you have to run out, you have an emergency. Or not an emergency, you forgot to get the chicken, whatever. So you got the laundry detergent, your wife sends you out for whatever the emergency might be. So now you're getting dressed. So I put on tzitzis now. It's like, it's nighttime. So again, according to the Rambam, there's no mitzvah. According to the Rush, you have a chiyuv. So Rav Moshe, interesting, says you should not put on tzitzis. Because he says, why? Because I would have said, it's a svega dedida, put on tzitzis without a bracha. That's what I would have thought the pashas. Rav Moshe has an interesting shita that he says, no, it's better not to do anything because by putting on your sitches, you're putting yourself into a shayla, or maybe you're not doing the mitzvah properly. But he says not to put it on because you want to avoid the question of whether you have to make a bracha or not. So the question is, let's work with Rav Moshe shita. So that's okay when you're going to get to do the laundry detergent, you're going to get the chicken. It might be a cholva of shalom bayis, but it's a rishus. You don't have to do it. You don't have to be wearing tzitzis when you go to the supermarket. However, the halacha is you have to wear a talis at Selichos. So I can't just choose that option. So what should I do? So that the poskim discuss that probably the best eitzah to do is, because the Gemara says kasus, we learn on kasuscha that the chiyuv probably minat Torah has to be your own beged, and maybe even midrabanan. Maybe if you borrow it for 30 days, it looks like it's yours, but the chiyuv minat Torah has to be your own. So the post can bring down the best eitzah is to take a talis shel chaveiro. You should take, and that's a general eitzah, not just here. And to avoid the issues of making a bracha on a talis when it's an issue, you should take your talis shel chaveiro, and therefore you don't have to put on the talis. I don't make a bracha. And other posts can bring down. What about the option of taking the talis shel tzibor? So then so the issue is that's a beggar shel shutfin. According to most Rishonim, Yechayev to make a bracha on that. There's one shita, or at least, or a minority ministry, I think brings down from the Shari Ephraim, that he says his shita is that no, you would make a bracha in Pashas Shimtas be of Sibor if you're just putting on a talis for a couple of minutes. You're not really wearing it. It's a beggar shel kavod. You're going to make an ali. You're doing whatever you're doing. So he quotes a shita that you can't make a bracha on that. So most poskim don't assume that way, but since there's a shita that way, so you have to avoid the talis shel shutfin, because some, according to a minority view, you can't make a bracha. It's best to take a talis shel chavero. That's what the poskim bring down. So if you're going to do slichos at night, so you have to wear a talis, but then to avoid the issue, you should to avoid the machlokas, the Rambam and Rush, and we can't take Ramoshes to not wearing a talis, because you need a talis for Selichos, so therefore they point out that one should go ahead and make take your friend's talis. There's one last point we could conclude on. That do you have a question? Oh, it's not on, or
It's running out of battery. It's okay, it's still okay.
so
Barely.
So they point out that, as we mentioned last week, the Indian of Shomea Ka'ona by Shofar, it seems to be a machlokas, the Rambam and Rabbeinu Tam, whether we say Shomea. So we go with the Shmiya. We go with, we don't work with Shomea Ka'ona as we mentioned last week. Every person's doing the mitzvah themselves, and so we assume no Shomea Ka'ona by Shofar. How come? Why don't we say Shomea Ka'ona? Why is shofar different? So they point out that the shofar represents that we want everyone to be the same. In other words, that the whole concept of shofar, the source of shofar, is, they quote the case by in the Chatzosros, the reason why we blew shofar in the Chatzosros isn't for tshuva, it was to get all the people to come together. It was Achdos Yisrael, or we find shofar by Har Sinai. We know the Ish Echad, the Lev Echad. Or why do we blow shofar on Yom Kippur? Maybe we'll talk about more next week. Because of base Yovel, because I'm not sure what year is Yovel. A suffix once in every, so therefore I'm going to blow shofar every year. But Yovel represents Bias Kulchem, that when all Klal Yisrael are together. So that's the concept. That's the Mefarshim point out the story with the Isha Shunamis and Elisha, that after she did him a favor, he said, "What can I do for you? I could talk to the Melech. You have any parking tickets to fight? Something you need?" And she said, "No." V'sochami anochi yoshav. This verse is always says, "V'hi hayom." It was Rosh Hashanah, and he was going to talk to the Melech Malchei Amwakim. This is v'sochami anochi yoshav. That no, I just want to be judged among the people, and that's the yisod of shofar, and that's what, in fact, that's the beautiful Orach Chaim that he explains that in the Tochacha Parshas Bechukosai is. We know is Lashon Rabim, and Parshas Kisavo is Lashon Yachid. That's one distinction. As well, the distinction is that Bechukosai ends with Nechama. It says Ve'eskor es Brisi, and Parshas Kisavo ends abruptly, and you're to be sold as slaves. No one wants you. What's the pshat? Why is Parshas Bechukosai ends with Nechama, but Parshas Kisavo ends abruptly? So the Orach Chaim HaKodesh points out, because that's the Yisod, that Parshas Kisavo is in Lashon Yachid. Who could stand among Yom Adin as a Yachid? There's no, there could be no Hofi, there's no Nechama. But if you're going to be judged by Lashon Rabim, if you're going to be judged together with the cloud, that's what we have to hope for. None of us could stand in judgment alone, but if we go together with the Tzibor, attach ourselves to a Tzibor, then discuss of a Tzibor. That's the beautiful pshat of the Mar.
But isn't it backwards? Maybe I missed it. The clothes of Kisava, which are...
The Gemara, Bechukosai is Lashon Rabim. The Gemara Megillah says Bechukosai is Lashon...
Bechukosai is Rabim?
Yeah, Bechukosai is Lashon Rabim.
Often you need to carry, right?
Right, and then Kisava was Lashon Yachid, I thought they said. Because I'm saying, based on the Orach Chaim's shot, because...
right, that's what I understand.
No, because there are other... It's usually the opposite. People say... The Gemara is different. How Lashon Rabim was talking to... Kolecha v'yecha, Lashon Yachid is based, and that's a different Gemara. But or the Orach Chaim, right?
To work. the hukosa has to be burned.
Right, that's what he writes the Orach Chaim, right. And this to conclude, that's a beautiful maral. And the Avnei Nezer quotes it, but he doesn't give you context. We know the halacha based on the Gemara. We read it Hanistaras, Haniglos. We read last week, and the Gemara in Sanhedrin goes into detail. So the Avnei Nezer writes, and the Gemara tells us that on Har Sinai we got personal responsibility, but where did the principle of Kol Yisrael Reiv Zelazeh begin? That the Kolos and what we read last week, and that's when Klal Yisrael entered Eretz Yisrael. That's when we got the principle of Kol Yisrael Reiv. That's what the Gemara in Sanhedrin goes into. So what is he? This is the Maral, which points out a juxtaposition in the Psukim in Parashas Bahar. It talks about don't take ribis, and if that's why God connects us keeping the land of Israel with not taking ribis. So the concept doesn't make any sense. I understand we're talking about Shemitah, like we does discuss Trumas Amaisus, it's mitzvahs atuyis ba'aretz. But what does taking ribis have to do with getting thrown out of the land of Israel? So the Maharal explains along the same lines that what's the concept of ribis? Ribis is you're taking advantage. If someone's vulnerable, he needs money, you're loaning the money, and like you're buying the person, you're taking you don't feel the opposite, you don't feel helping the sorrow of someone else. Eretz Yisrael represents Kol Yisrael Reiv Mazel. We got the din of Arevis when we moved into Eretz Yisrael. So Eretz Yisrael represents brotherly love. Ribis represents the opposite. So one who doesn't have the Achdus, so if you take Ribis, you're not going to be Zocha to the Achdus of Eretz Yisrael. That's the Pshat. So one of the things to keep in mind, that the whole Yisod of the Shofar, that there's no Shemei Ka'oneh, the Orach Chaim, the B'soch Ami Anochi Yoshaves, that none of us could stand in judgment alone. But when we, he had the Kol HaShofar, we think of, attaching ourselves to the Klal, as the Bali Musa put it during Aseret Shemei Tshuva. And other times we should try to be a Yachid Sheharabim Tolibo. We should try to be a Yachid which the Rabbim are dependent on, and therefore, even if not your own schus, but the schus Harabim, so then as we see, there's a Nachama when you're involved in the Rabbim. Have a Ksima Chasima Tova. I guess we'll do some Inyani Yom Kippur next week.